Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this council meeting to order. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessing upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and the will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so we may act in the best interests of our people, neighbors, and country. All this we seek so when we serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs above all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Caserta. Davis. Here. Kolstad.
Here.
Mahan. O'Neill.
Here.
Watanabe. And Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
If I could also read the AB 23 announcement that members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting. And finally, our statement of behavioral standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that, as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much. Next, we have continuances and exceptions. And I want to start by saying that we received this afternoon a letter from our city clerk who has tendered his resignation from the city clerk's position, unfortunately for us and for Santa Clara. So I'm going to have Mr. Deardon will speak to that, Clerk Deardon, in a minute. But before we even talk about that, City Attorney, we'd like to add an item to the agenda this evening. So could you please tell us what the process is for that before we go into that?
Yes, under the Brown Act, I'll just read you the appropriate language. When 2/3 of the members present, or all members if less than 2/3 are present, determine there is a need for immediate action and the need to take action came to the attention of the local agency subsequent to the agenda being posted, then you can add a matter to the agenda. So normally you need 72 hours to have an agenda item on your agenda, but since we just received this today, that was after the 72 hours. And if 2/3 of you vote to add this to today's agenda, what we would like you to add to the agenda is consideration of both the clerk's resignation and note and filing his letter of resignation, as well as informing the public of his last day. And the relevance of that is that next week you have a council meeting and you need to have a clerk at the council meeting. And so we're also going to be asking you to consider appointing someone to perform the duties of the clerk under the charter. This is not an appointment of fulfilling the clerk's office, the elected office of the clerk. It's simply under a different section of the charter that does not deal with vacancy. It's a different section of the charter. It would be to have someone be available to perform the actions of a clerk. I'll explain that later. If you create the agenda item, I will go into more depth about what we're asking you to do in terms of the action tonight.
I just want to acknowledge that as part of your post-agenda materials, there's a report that I signed related to the matter before you.
Thank you. So the first order of business is to add this to the agenda. So is there a motion? Second. Motion second. Any discussion on that? Okay, and that passes unanimously. So now that we've added this to the agenda, I, with regret, am going to ask Clerk Deardon if he would like to tell us the reason for his resignation, and which caught us all by surprise, I have to say. So.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your kind words, Mayor Gilmore, and so many of you for being so supportive, both today and over the years. It's been a real pleasure to work with each of you. And it has been an honor to serve the residents of the city of Santa Clara, both as a council member and as city clerk and auditor. After 21 years of service to the city, today, February 6th, I will be leaving the city to resume a career in the high-tech industry. While as an elected official, it is appropriate that my tenure end with the signing of this letter, please know that I am happy to help transition programs, offer subject matter expertise, and be a resource in the future as appropriate for this fine city that I love. When I ran for city clerk, it was with the intent of implementing programs that would effectively serve our residents and strengthen democracy in our community. And our team here in Santa Clara has accomplished this. We've increased voter and community engagement and received 3 international awards for excellence and 2 state awards for distinction along the way. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have known and helped so many of our residents. I have deep respect for the elected, appointed, and regular staff members with whom I've had the privilege to work, and I have faith that our council and city management team will successfully lead our fine city for years to come. And let me say that having seen the recommendation that Jennifer Yamaguma serve as the acting city clerk, I will share with you that you will find no smarter, harder working, or more thoughtful person with whom I am happy to transition those duties. And it is an honor and a pleasure to do so. I think very highly of Ms. Yamaguma and have enjoyed working with her over the years, and I know that she will serve in that stead extremely well. With that, let me thank again the residents of Santa Clara for the opportunity to serve. I have said many times that any day, any of us here on the dais, as employees or as appointed officials, get to walk through those doors at City Hall and serve the people of Santa Clara, the best days or the hardest days, it is still a good day. With that, I wish each of you and everyone in the city of Santa Clara the absolute very best. Please know that while I leave my elected role, I'm not leaving Santa Clara, and if you need me, you know where to find me. I'm happy to help as and where appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Dearden, and I know since we were all caught by surprise today, we're not prepared for this, so I would say that in the very near future, we would call you back here so that we can actually properly honor you for all your years of service, both as an elected and both jobs, elected council member, elected city clerk. We'd want to do it the right way and do it properly. I just want to tell you that. So I have lights down the road. Councilmember Caserta, you're first.
This is, I'm really sad. It's emotional. For me, when you think of the Dearden name, the Deardoni name, you think of public service. And Rod, you've been a friend of mine since 1999. We served together for 2 years. But most importantly, what you have done in voter outreach. I know personally as a high school teacher what you've done in our classrooms at Santa Clara and Wilcox. You know, I'm very, I keep saying the word verklempt. It sounds like an SNL skit, but I'm sad. Just not seeing you, just thank you for your service, Rod. And I know you still will have Santa Clara in your heart, and you're an amazing husband and father, and it's not goodbye, it's just see you soon, but I'm very sad, so, very sad.
Thank you, Councilmember Caserta. Councilmember Mahan.
Rod, I know I'm taken aback, and I wish I could say, no, we don't accept this resignation, but it's not up to me. You've served this city with the utmost integrity, honesty, and competence. You've gained many honors personally in your role as city clerk, but more importantly, those honors you have shared and brought honor to our city. I can't say enough about how you conduct yourself, how you treat your staff, how you treat our employees at City Hall in general, how you treat all of us on the council, keeping us in line, making sure we get our reports in on time, making sure our reports are correct, keeping us from running afoul of the FPPC, which is pretty important to all of us. You brought our ethics program to higher and higher levels of service. You created the Democracy in Action program. You've involved increasing voter registration, increasing resident involvement in both campaigns and elections, and even in governance. I think it's been a testament to your outreach from your office in reaching voters and residents throughout Santa Clara and seeing the increased involvement and participation that we've seen over the years. You know, it translates to more applications for our commissions, to more volunteers in our city and on different programs. But more important, I think it's just raised the level of awareness throughout our voters on what ethical campaigning is all about, what serving in office with ethics and honor means. And that's largely been because of your very proactive approach to these issues and the programs you've implemented and the things you brought to council, the initiatives you brought to council are you've reformed our campaign finance, you've reformed our ethics program, you've done so much. As Mayor Gilmore has said, this has come as something of a shock, certainly as a surprise. So we don't all have the prepared remarks that we should have, but I'm sure we will in due course. But I'm sorry to see you go. You will be so missed on this dais in City Hall as a whole, and I know your staff's going to miss you tremendously. You've been a great asset to this city, and I thank you for all your years of service.
Thank you, Councilmember Mahan. Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I was very surprised, but I'm very happy for Rod, because I think he's to be congratulated when he's comfortable saying exactly what his position will be. We should all be proud of him. He's got, and I think it's a really accolades to him for that. And he said, I was a little surprised because he said that because I've spoken so fondly of my time in the private sector that it inspired him to maybe look at the private sector again. But Rod and I go back to when I was on the school board and he was a city council member, and we talked about how, you know, we worked together then and talked a lot about at different times about the role of education, the role of the public sector, and who are we going to have that's going to come out there and say, hey, let's go out there and do some democracy. So I will miss him very much on a personal level, but I look forward to seeing him and his kids and his dad and his wife around town. And I thank you for bringing that level of excitement to local government, and I look forward to working with you in your new capacity. So congratulations.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I hit my drawer. Rod, I'm totally taken back by this as well. I know you've served the city well, but one position that you have served in that I haven't mentioned is the Board of Library Trustees, which I think is a wonderful stepping stone into elected public service. So thank you for your time there as well. And we look forward to having you back so we can definitely have a proper goodbye for you and be able to have the city as a whole participate. So, but thank you for your 21 years of service. That's very remarkable, but wish you much luck. You're still a young man. You've got many years ahead of you and to do some great things in the tech industry. So good. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kolstad.
Thanks, Mayor. Brother Diridon, we go back a ways. We worked together here for 15 years. I think the first time I met you, you were a high school kid, and you would stop by the coffee shop for a treat on your way home from school with your sister. And you were a stand-up guy then. I mean, you said some really intelligent, engaging things to all the detectives who were at the coffee shop drinking coffee in the afternoon. But your accomplishments since you've entered public life have been pretty astounding. Patty went through them pretty efficiently, I think. This is kind of a double-edged sword because I'm very disappointed that we're going to be losing you at the City of Santa Clara, but I'm very happy for you because you have this new opportunity in your life to start something completely different. And I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss, I always miss your whole family, you know, your wife, your kids, your sister, everybody. But I know you're going to do well in whatever you choose to do going forward. Thanks, brother.
Councilmember Mahan, did you have more comments? Okay. All right. So Clerk Dearden, I think that we'll save more comments when we bring you back to honor you, and I'll finally be able to tell the stories about you that I really want to tell when you're in the private sector.
Please be kind.
But congratulations on your new opportunities, and we will really miss you here at City Hall. But knowing the type of person that you are and how government and politics runs through your blood, you won't be far away from us, and I know that. So I'm looking for 2 actions by the council tonight. One is to note and file the resignation letter submitted by Rod Dearden Jr., City Clerk, dated today. And we'll start with that one. Is there a motion to note and file the resignation letter? With regret. Councilmember Colstead, your light's on. Did you want? Okay. All right, so lights on the motion, and that passed unanimously. The second is to appoint Jennifer Yamaguma to the position of acting city clerk. And I know that the city attorney will be bringing back our options at a later date, or would you like to go through them now, council?
I just want to make it clear for the public that there's 2 different operative sections of the charter and which one you're acting under right now, so that there's no confusion. One section is the section dealing with vacancies, and that is section 703. And I just want to point out that we're not asking you to act under that at this point.
We're not acting on section 703.
Right, you're not appointing someone as the elected city clerk, the interim city clerk that would fill the position until the next election. So that's not the section we're operating under. There's a separate section under Article 9 of the Charter, and that is section 903. And at the last sentence of that, which enumerates the powers of the city clerk, the last sentence of that section says, the city council may, in its discretion, appoint any other officer or employee of the city as city clerk and grant such person additional compensation for the performance of such duties. We're not asking you to do anything with compensation tonight. We're simply asking you to appoint a current city employee to perform the duties of the city clerk because it's necessary for the next week that we
so to continue business
to continue
of the
being
city,
able to have city council meetings with the city clerk present. Yes, we do need someone to perform the duties of the city clerk. So we're not asking you to appoint Jennifer tonight as filling the vacancy of the city clerk, just simply to perform the duties of the city clerk and to act as the acting city clerk.
Acting until the council takes any further action pursuant to the charter.
Correct.
All right. Is there a motion for that? Motion second. Lights on the motion. Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask Jennifer Yamaguma if she will accept this position. Before we vote. Okay, is that a yes? All right. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. I just want to say that Ms. Yamaguma was trained under Clerk Dearden back 2007 to 2015. Is that correct? So you have vast experience working in the city clerk's office. So she'll be able to hit the ground running because she did work with Rod for so many years. So
May I share also that she's a certified master municipal clerk, and for my money, the smartest person at City Hall. You're in good hands.
He can say that now he's leaving. Thank you, Rod. Thank you. Can someone take a picture?
There's the photographer here.
Oh, I guess we're going to.
Going down or up?
No, let him come up.
Let him come up.
Here, come up here.
Guys, the coolest thing, I'm going to see what's on TV on a Tuesday night.
Not much.
NCIS.
Okay. No other surprises, City Manager? Moving on.
I just want to
Yes.
thank Jennifer for accepting the acting city clerk position and acknowledge how comforting it was within an hour's time after talking with City Clerk Rod Diradon that we do have in-house talent to immediately appoint and bring before the council. So thank you, Rod, for training Jennifer, and thank you, Jennifer, for your service.
And thank you, Jennifer, for accepting as well. Thank you. All right. Next, we have our special order of business, a recognition of Santa Clara High School and middle school students for participation in county, state, national, and international science competitions. So, we have the City of Santa Clara is honored to recognize the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM achievements of 13 City of Santa Clara students for their participation in the Santa Clara Valley Science and Engineering Fair Association's 2017 Synopsis Championship. These students participated in the California State Science Fair, Broadcom, Masters Competition, the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair, and the International Sustainable World Project. These highly competitive science fairs at the county, state, and national and international levels features both high school and middle school students from the City of Santa Clara, maintaining a long tradition of outstanding performance in STEM in Santa Clara. So I would like to now ask Dr. Katie Korsmeyer, President of the Board of Santa Clara Valley Science and Engineering Fair Association and the Associate Director of Special Projects, College of Arts and Sciences at Santa Clara University, to come to the podium and introduce students and say a few words about the competition. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Gilmore, council members, and the city manager's office for this invitation to honor our young scientists and engineers. I really appreciate the time on your busy agenda to recognize our students' achievements. So I'd like to invite our students to the stage as I call their names. Yusra Arub from Archbishop Mitty High School. Yay, yes, we can clap. Jason Coe from Cabrillo Middle School. Safa Hussein from Challenger Sunnyvale. Ahmed Ismail from Granada Islamic School. Sakshi Kumar from Cabrillo Middle School. Misbah Saeed from Granada Islamic School. And Surya Talavarjula from Peterson Middle School. A few others couldn't attend because of conflicts. Actually, we've had a set of twins that have been in this chamber multiple times in the past. They're now students at Berkeley studying astrophysics, continuing along the same kind of trajectory they had in the projects that they performed.
So is that Shashir and
Yes.
Shashank?
Yeah, the same twins. And
Great.
you probably recognize them from years past, right?
Right, I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a little bit about the Santa Clara Valley Science and Engineering Fair Association for the audience. We are a volunteer organization managing the county's regional science fair for the past 56 years. I am also at Santa Clara University and also direct a nonprofit Teach Biotech. So seeing these students, the excitement, the passion, the growth that they have for doing hands-on science and engineering is what really keep me motivated and going. So our mission is to awaken more students to the wonder and power of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Approximately 1,000 students from grades 6 to 12 participate, about 500 judges. 60 companies in professional groups give out category awards, special awards, grand prizes. And in addition, many teachers and students also, schools also receive awards to recognize the support that they provide to our students. So I really ask all of you, or any of you out here with backgrounds in science and engineering, we really need judges. All these students really want professionals to talk to. They enjoy telling them about their projects, and that tends to be a highlight they all mention in their feedback. So we really need judges, and we're growing out of our space at the San Jose Convention Center. These students, their projects cover technology to end homelessness, help medical doctors in underdeveloped countries, help visually impaired people. Some harness the ocean wave power, antifungal agents, and reducing water usage and irrigation. So these are young people who really want to help the future, help society, and give back. So if anyone has doubts about the capabilities around young people, I invite you to come and be amazed. The public viewing of this year's Synopsis Championship is on March 15th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the San Jose Convention Center South Hall. That's a big giant blue tent. So again, I thank you for recognizing their accomplishments in the Santa Clara community. Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
and we have some certificates for them we'd
Yes,
like to give
lovely.
them and take our picture
Up
with
there
the
would-
council
that'd be
up
great.
here. Would
Yes,
be great.
awesome. Thank you.
I see a staff light on. Is there? Okay, Vice Mayor Watanabe, did you want to say something before we present that?
I did, yes.
The
Just very
certificates?
quickly, congratulations. I actually attended the Synopsis Science Fair last year, and I was supposed to be a judge, but there was a miscommunication. But I still went around and I visited many of the projects, and I was so amazed at the work of these high school students. I mean, they're definitely the future scientists and future leaders. I mean, it's so wonderful it's like the future looks bright when you hear, what they're thinking of and coming up with for science. And you're just really amazing. So congratulations. And I just want to give us another shout out to Surya, who recognized him from Saturday. He was part of the Boy Scout troop 394 that participated in Congressman Khanna's town hall. He was part of the color guard presentation. So welcome to City Hall, but congratulations again. Great work.
Thank you. Can I sign you up as a judge this year?
Yeah, sign her
okay,
up, please.
I'll sign her
Yeah,
up.
sign her right away.
I will. Thank
Councilmember
you.
Kolstad?
I just want to say that today I watched the SpaceX Falcon Heavy launch, and the announcer on television said, gosh, when we were younger, we would just wait for these launches from Cape Canaveral and later Cape Kennedy. And now we've become so accustomed to this. This is the most powerful rocket engine in the world, SpaceX Falcon. Never take science for granted. You guys are going to be high achievers for your whole lives. Congratulations.
And we're all very incredibly proud of you. So let's
Great.
meet up
Thank
here
you.
and give your certificates.
Come on up.
I can.
Come to the middle, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Move. Yeah, yes, yes, that's right. Thank you.
Okay, the next special order of business we have is promotion of a vacancy on the Civil Service Commission. And we have Chris Hang, who will be presenting that for us today.
Oh,
Oh, what?
changed my name to Mario Boza for today.
Okay, Chris, you are now Mario.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Mario.
Nice to be here. First of all, I was really surprised about Rod Duradon. Man, we're going to miss him. And congratulations, Jennifer. Like to know whatever company he's going to in the private sector so I can buy some stock. He's going to make it great, like he did with our city. Okay, we have an opening right now in the Civil Service Commission. Let me go over the application to process to be a Civil Service Commissioner. The applications are available at the city clerk's office or online. Deadline for application to be turned in is Tuesday, February 13, no later than 5 p.m. Interviews are going to be held on Tuesday, February 20th at the City Council meetings. At that time, an appointment should be made. Qualification for a Civil Service Commissioner: must be a registered voter, must reside in the city of Santa Clara, must not hold employment in the city of Santa Clara. Appointments and terms: the 5 members of the Civil Service Commissions shall be appointed and shall be subject to removal by the motion of the City Council adopted by at least 4 affirmative votes. The Civil Service Commissioners work closely with the City of Human Resources Department. Regular meetings are held on the second Mondays or every odd month. The members of the commission generally serve 4-year terms effective July 1st. One vacancy became effective on January 23rd, 2018. Powers and duties: the Civil Service Commission will act as a board of review to hear petitions by civil service employees and applicants for service positions and to grant or deny such petitions. Dates of boards of reviews will be set on the availability of the commissioners and the parties involved. The Civil Service Commission performs such other duties as may be required by the Civil Service rules and regulations. And finally, powers and duties. The Civil Service Commission is charged with the duties of providing qualified persons for appointments to the service of the city. All appointments in the city's service shall be made for the good of that service and solely upon the merit and fitness of the established by appropriate tests, without regards to partisan politics, race, color, or religious belief. One thing that I like to add is that without the help of our HR department, which is a fantastic group of people that work there, we couldn't do the job, and they make our job so much easier. It's unbelievable. So I just wanted to say that. And now, if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer for you.
Are there any questions from the council? Anyone? No, I don't see any. Thank you so much, Mario, for the presentation.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
We appreciate it. All right, next we have promotion of a vacancy on the Planning Commission. And with us, we have the chair of the Planning Commission, Yuki Akizi. Welcome, Yuki.
Thank you. Hey. Mayor and council members,
Thank you for an opportunity to present about a volunteer position on the Planning Commission. My name is Yuki Ikezi, and I'm the chair of the commission. We want Santa Clara residents to apply and volunteer and help shape the future of our community. So what is the Planning Commission? Planning Commission comprises 7 members appointed by the City Council for 4-year terms. The commissioner has to be eligible to vote and also be a resident of Santa Clara. Planning Commission reviews development projects proposed by homeowners and developers and recommend to the City Council on whether to approve them. We also advise the Council on long-range planning and development of our city. A lot of information on planning is available in our general plan on the city website. I encourage applicants to download a copy of this general plan and take a look because they will be asked about the general plan during the interview process. Planning Commission's next page, please. Planning Commission's reviews all kinds of developments proposed in Santa Clara. We conduct public hearings on development proposals and land use proposals. We represent the community at large and provide a check and balance on each project. We protect the interests of our community while respecting the rights of property owners. In recent years, we have been busy reviewing plans on apartment complexes, shopping malls, office campuses, single residences, doggy daycare, breweries, and new restaurants. It's very cool to find out about the new stuff coming along in our city. We are also acutely aware that Santa Clara is transforming rapidly. There's a rush of developments for accommodating the new people and businesses attracted to Silicon Valley. The Planning Commission constantly weighs the pros and cons of each proposed development against the interests of its neighbors. We also want to make sure that our community evolves. California currently faces an acute housing shortage, and we're constantly asking ourselves, what could we do to reduce the number of people left behind because of this critical problem? Planning Commission is a great position for a Santa Claran who wants to have a voice in shaping the future of our community. Next page, please. Our other responsibilities include reviewing proposals on new ordinances and zoning changes and making recommendations on environmental issues. Some of us serve on the architectural committee that reviews remodeling and other projects. Next page. We do all these reviews at our meetings, and we meet 2 Wednesday evenings per month for hearings and study sessions. Commissioners, and especially the new members, are also encouraged to attend state and national conferences to get trained on land use issues. Next page. I think we're on the... Okay, so how can an interested Santa Claran apply for this amazing job? Applicants can pick up an application form at City Hall or apply online. Application deadline is February 27th. City Council will interview the applicants and pick our new member on November 7th. In closing, I would like to point out that this new appointment will be an opportunity to bring more diverse voices to our commission. For example, I'm concerned that all of the current commission members are homeowners, while more than half of Santa Clara residents are renters. I would like to read you an excerpt from the resignation letter submitted to the council by the Planning Commissioner Brandon Reinhardt. This vacancy is to fill the position left by him when he resigned. Okay, so here's the excerpt of the letter. Dear Madam Mayor and City Council, I hereby submit my formal resignation from the Planning Commission effective immediately. While I have been fortunate enough to live in Santa Clara County for a majority of my life, I can sadly no longer afford to do so. My family has decided to relocate to the greater Sacramento area. This is indeed an unfortunate case, as I am a fourth-generation resident of Santa Clara County and have loved growing up and spending most of my life here. I have noticed in my time on the Planning Commission that most people who have an active role in the community tend to own homes here. In fact, I am currently the only renter on the Planning Commission or City Council, while over 60% of our city population is comprised of renters. Understandably, homeowners have strong voices and opinions in their community, but their opinion is not the only one that counts. My hope is that going forward, you will more strongly consider the people who cannot afford a $200,000 down payment, because I assure you, we are the majority. Supply and demand is not a difficult concept to comprehend. The less housing units we have, the more they're going to cost. This problem is starting to gain traction at the state level as they slowly start to strip away local land use powers. My suggestion would be that if you wish to retain these powers, be proactive, be progressive, and be a leader in paving the way for housing to be more affordable. As a chair, I was very saddened by Brandon's departure. Brandon was a huge asset, not just to our commission, but to Santa Clara. He had a demanding tech job and a young family with new baby, and yet he made time to volunteer and serve in our community. If we want our community to keep thriving, we need to work hard to keep people like Brandon from having to leave. As volunteer representatives of the Santa Clara residents, Planning Commission is entrusted with decisions that directly affect their homes, businesses, and neighborhoods. Having a broad range of voices that reflects our diverse community will help us continue to earn that trust. Mayor and council members, thank you again for allowing me to present this amazing opportunity to volunteer and serve. I really look forward to welcoming a new member to our commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. All right. Next, we have the consent calendar. All items are approved with one motion, and I have a request to continue 14A6, City Manager. Do you want it as to a certain date or indefinitely?
I'd like to defer that to February 20th. We just need to make some corrections to the report.
So 14A6 to February 20th. We'll put that in the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I have let's see, 14B2. Mr. Vartan, did you want that pulled from the consent? Okay. Pull 14B2.
Motion to approve the consent calendar with that pull and delay till the 20th.
Okay. Yes. Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Yes, I wanted to pull 14A6, please.
We're just continuing that to February 20th?
No, just pull it from the consent calendar. Is that what we're
They're
doing right
delaying
now?
it till the
Oh,
20th.
Oh, you did. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we're
Never mind.
continuing. So the motion is to approve the consent calendar, to pull 14B2 for discussion, and to continue 14A6 to February 20th. Motion second. 15. Lights on the motion? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Caserta, your lights on? Did you? Oh, that's okay. So next we have public presentations. Kurt Vartan, I have a card for you for public presentations. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I think everybody's in shock right now, so I won't dwell on that. But I was just at, well, first I'd like to thank the city mayor and Councilmember O'Neill for coming to the Catalyze SV launch party last week. It was wonderful. We welcomed you, and thank you so much for your support. And I just came back from a meeting. It was the Valco. The Valco site is having a specific plan in Cupertino right now, and they did their first outreach meeting last night. And it was, I think, a couple hundred people attended that. It was very well attended. And today they had individual groups. Opticos is their consultant that goes through and is meeting with different stakeholder groups. They have like 15 of them today. And I was invited to be a part of one of those. And I learned some really interesting things. So they're talking about, what do you want to see on the site? I think what everybody goes through with all of the development challenges in front of us, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want here? Like, what do you want to see? What don't you want to see? And someone in our group was from the school district, from the Cupertino Union School District. And she shared some statistics, which, again, I don't have any kids, so I don't know how these statistics all line up with other organizations. But at least in the Cupertino Union School District, in 2017, their student declined 400 students, the district. And they're projecting that to be a continuing trend over this year and next year. Maybe not at that same level, but these aren't going up right now. And when she was asked, why is that? It was cost of housing. You can't have starter families living in Cupertino right now. And I think you could replace Cupertino with Santa Clara, with San Jose, with Sunnyvale, with Mountain View. I think a lot of these cities could be replaced in that. And I just would like to offer that people and affordability and people coming to a city creates challenges, but there's so many benefits that get to happen when that density of people is embraced. And if we don't figure out how to embrace the density that is already here, like we've already voted with our permits, we've already allowed the hundreds of millions of square feet of buildings and office space that's here. Now we have to figure out how to make it a community that we all want to be a part of. And I know a lot of the original residents here are challenged with their neighborhoods changing, but there are a lot of residents here that are challenged with the current conditions and then just can't survive. So I hope that, you know, with the Tasman East thing that you're doing today, I thought was great. And I just hope that we continue this discussion, especially with these other big projects like Kylie and others. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public presentations? All right, seeing none, then the consent items pulled for discussion. Mr. Vartan, it was your item, 14B2, which is adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the Sustainable Community Grants Restricted Grant Agreement for fiscal year 2017-18 with the California Department of Transportation for the City of Santa Clara Pedestrian Master Plan. Yes.
So I didn't pull this to say anything more. I would hate to see something as wonderful as a grant like this kind of gets swept under the with all the other consent items and just get lost. This is something that is you have a couple $300,000 that's going towards a real community benefit. And that should be celebrated. So I just didn't, I wanted to have it pulled for nothing more than to acknowledge that it's a wonderful thing that your city was able to apply for and get. So congratulations, and I look forward to seeing you implement those programs.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill, you have something to say about that?
Yes, thank you. I also think this is a great thing, and I want to congratulate Carol Shariat, who's our first and new transportation planner in the Public Works Department, because she was the one who wrote this grant, and I did speak with her at length to support that effort. And I know sometimes we've had comments from the community that, you know, we rely a lot on grants, or why are we even doing this stuff? We don't have staff to fulfill it. And, you know, some of what I want to say is by having a plan, now we are eligible to get other grants, like, you know, we're trying to catch up and get our bike plan back in place because it expired, and that means we're not eligible to receive certain grants. So I want to commend the Public Works Department and Dennis Singh and his team, in particular Carol, for this. And I do think that this is a growing appreciation in Santa Clara about the value of having walkable and bikeable communities. And I hope that when we get this plan finished, it will put us in a position to be able to institute these kinds of things into these specific plans and to get some more funds from the MTC and other groups to make them come into fruition. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the grant.
So a motion on second. Any other discussion on that? Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you for pulling that, Kurt. All right, next we have items set for hearing. Sorry, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Seeing none. No unfinished business. All right, item set for hearing. The first item we have is 167 Cronin Drive. This item was continued from December 19th, 2017. It's a consideration of the appeal submitted by David and Barbara Martin to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the variance to allow a reduction of the minimum rear yard setback requirement for an unpermitted accessory building from 5 feet to 3 feet at the property. Staff recommendation is adoption of resolution to overrule the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's denial. So I'm going to consider the public hearing open. Is this a public hearing or just hearing? Public hearing? Okay. Yes, we have our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Andrew Crabtree, Director of Community Development. And as just described, the project is located at 167 Cronin Drive. And this is a request, it's an appeal by the property owner of the Planning Commission's denial of a variance, which would allow an accessory building that was constructed without benefit of permits to remain within what is normally the required setback of 5 feet, and the proposed, as built, the structure would be at a rear setback of 3 feet. Just to give some background information, the property in question is zoned R16L. It's a standard single-family lot. There was a 335 square foot detached accessory structure built in the rear. You can see here in the picture, and it has a deck in front of it as part of the construction. And with that construction, it would cover, as it is, it covers about 34% of the rear lot area. So that's within the allowed rear yard coverage. It doesn't exceed the 40% maximum. However, as mentioned, the structure as built is within 3 feet of the rear yard setback. The required setback in the city's zoning code is 5 feet for accessory structures in the rear yard. There's a provision that allows for some minor reduction through what's called a minor modification process, but it does not allow for a reduction to 3 feet. So a variance is the means by which someone can request a further reduction that would allow them to legalize the structure. Just additional background, the City Building Division did receive a complaint referencing that the construction was taking place without permit. Inspection was made, determined that the accessory structure was in fact constructed within the rear yard setback. The owner was noticed that they needed to correct that, and in their attempts to address and legalize the structure, they've submitted the variance application. Just a little bit of context here. You can see in the aerial photo, the accessory structure is highlighted with the red line. I'm in the rear yard, and it sits on the, towards the back of the property, adjacent to the backyard of other single-family structures. So when we as staff look at requests for variances, there are very specific findings that are identified in the zoning code that we are required to make in order to recommend approval. And then as it goes to the Planning Commission, they use those in making their determination. These are listed here in summary. Essentially, the intent of the variance is to allow for something where there's an unusual circumstance. In looking at the property, for some reason, it's not the same as other properties with the same zoning, in a way that if they were forced to follow the same rules as other properties, it would put them at a disadvantage. So the classic might be if there's some sort of like unusual topography on the site that prevents them from locating structures where otherwise they would be able to. So in looking at this particular case, it's a standard single-family lot of regular dimensions. Staff could not identify anything that was unique or special about the site that would be the grounds for granting that variance. Determination that the structure could be moved to meet the 5-foot rear yard setback. If there's a concern about moving it 2 feet to meet the setback would reduce the lot area, it would be possible to reduce the size of, the rear yard usable area. It could be possible to reduce the size of the deck. And so that was our evaluation. Took that to the Planning Commission. They did grant a minor modification for the height of the structure. It also exceeds the height limit, but it is within the amount that can be granted per the code, a minor modification. So they approved the 14-foot, 6-inch height of the structure as built, but then the Planning Commission determined they could not make the findings to grant the variance and denied it. As also is allowed in our zoning code, the property owner filed an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision, which is what has brought them here tonight. Staff is recommending that the council overrule the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the permit of the variance request for the reasons discussed, that staff in our evaluation have found that the site does not in any way meet the criteria for it being something unique or special, where the homeowners are being deprived of the same benefits that other homeowners would have if they followed the city's ordinances. So with that, staff is available to answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, I just wanted to disclose that I did meet with the applicants, like it was over a year ago. I'm not quite sure when they came in to just talk to me about the general situation, so I just wanted to disclose that.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan?
Thank you. I did have some questions. So is 34% lot coverage, does that include the deck?
It would not. Normally, we would only look at structures. It wouldn't include things like a deck that's at ground level or slightly above, or a pool or something like that.
Okay, so you're just saying the 34% just is their house and the unit itself?
It's just the accessory structure that's the percentage of the backyard that it covers.
Are there any utility easements on the back or the side of that structure?
Yes, so there are power lines that run along the rear of the property. The power lines, there's a 5-foot easement for the power lines. To legalize the structure will require an encroachment permit. It's my understanding that the applicants had some preliminary conversations with the utilities about the ability to get that, be granted that encroachment permit. That the utilities have said it is possible, as long as they agree to a provision that should they need to access that area, they can remove the structure.
Okay, and what utilities are involved there?
There's an electrical line, Silicon Valley Power. I believe there's also a secondary easement, but I'll have to check on that.
I'm sorry, Silicon Valley Power and what?
I think there may be a second one, but I have to check if but I know there's a power line easement there.
Okay. And their neighbors to the rear have looks like two accessory units there along their back fences. Do you know what the setbacks are on those?
We have not been out into their property to measure it. We looked at the aerial photo, and it appears that they may be a little bit greater than the 3 feet, but we do not have a verification of that.
And what would be the modification that would be allowable by the zoning administrator?
So they can reduce it down to 3 feet 6 inches. So that's, again, they're at 6 inches more than that reduction. But that's the greatest extent to which we are allowed to reduce the setback through minor modification.
And is there any overhang on the roof lines in the back and rear? In other words, would 3 foot 6 inches come to the wall or to the eaves?
Well, as it stands today, it's 3 feet to the wall.
And does it meet building codes? Has it been inspected for building code?
It has not been inspected for building code compliance by the city. The homeowner had an engineer submit a letter, which was in the packet, in which the engineer says, based on their initial observation, it could be possible for it to achieve building permits, but it has not been through a city review process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill, you had another question?
Yes. So in the report, the applicants have not yet applied for permits for this structure?
They've applied for the variance, but they have not yet applied for the building permits.
Okay, and in the report it said that there was, there was the suggestion to possibly move the building, or trim the deck, but we don't know. I don't know. So we don't know. We haven't had an inspection of the foundation to know whether it meets the code or whether the building can be shifted to make it in compliance.
Right. In the letter from the homeowner, they indicate that they looked into it. There would be some cost, which they cite as a hardship. The cost of moving it is, so they've had some exploration of that. And it would include, putting in some new foundation as they moved it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had a question. Could you not have approved this through a minor modification?
No, we could not. It exceeds what the code allows us to grant through a minor modification.
What could you have approved any part for a minor modification, like a foot, or what would have been your,
right.
what would have been your authority?
Right. So we're limited to, basically we can reduce it to 3 foot 6 inches, but in this case it's 3 feet, so it exceeds our authority.
So it could have been 3 feet 6 inches.
Right.
Okay, just trying to see what the delta is there. Okay. Any other questions before we hear from the applicant? All right, thank you very much. Representatives would like to come forward, please. You've got 10 minutes.
Please give me a moment to study the Zapper.
Figure out how to use that.
This is pretty simple. Okay. Okay, Mayor Gilmore, council members, I'm David Martin. Oh, here we go. I'm David Martin. My wife Barbara is also right here in the front row. And David Herzl is a planning or building designer who's been providing some consulting to us recently. We live at 167 Cronin Drive. We're homeowners there for over 22 years, and we expect to remain there throughout our retirement years. So here's the drawing that you've already seen. Of course, the horizontal line up at the top is the rear boundary of our property, and the double lines at the bottom represent the back of the house, and the shaded area is the structure in question, including the deck, as you can see there. The green strip represents the area of the variance that is being requested. So in the remainder of my time, after very briefly describing the structure and its purpose, I will focus on the points that we made in our letter of justification, and in particular, the reasons why the structure needed to be located where it is, and the undue hardship that would result from having to reconstruct or move the structure. At the end, I'll also show how our points can be mapped onto the types of findings that are required for a variance to be granted, and a few comments about the status of our project. So briefly, this structure, the creation of this structure represented a great labor of love for Barbara. She envisioned it as a place where she could practice her beloved artwork throughout her retirement years, and she designed it and planned it and was present every day, working hand in hand with the contractor to make sure all the details came out just right. I've just got 4 photos. You've already seen this one, and here's similar angle in the evening. This is a part of the interior showing some of the workspace, and back around the corner is some of the storage space. And here, of course, looking out onto our backyard from inside the structure. So I should also mention high quality construction in every aspect by licensed contractors. There's no water supply, gas supply, heating, or plumbing, and will never be used for residential purposes. So now to our central points from our statement of justification. There are 3 of these. First, the placement of the structure was necessary to allow satisfactory landscaping options given the size of the yard. So coming back to this picture, we're also showing here the existing, let's see if this works. Yeah, the existing garden plot with a small brick wall around it. And the yellow rectangle is concrete pavement just behind our house. and the green circle represents a planned location of a fruit tree. So for maximum clarity, I'd like to just read a small excerpt from our statement of justification with respect to this slide. Physical relocation of the building would seriously diminish the aesthetics of our backyard and obstruct our planned landscaping work. Our backyard is of a modest size and the structure is already close to the house. The closest point is only 6 feet from the concrete surface behind the house. Moving the workshop 2 feet closer to the house would cause the deck to directly abut the existing garden plot and make it impossible to build a walkway through this area as we have planned. The end result would make it more difficult to move around the yard, block the visibility of a planned flower bed, make it impossible to plant the planned fruit tree, and would be much less attractive than what we would like to achieve with our landscaping. Okay, next of our central points, the prohibitive cost of rebuilding or moving. And here again, I will even more briefly quote a few sentences. The construction of the workshop has already involved an investment that is very substantial for us, around $50,000. Rebuilding the structure would require an additional very large investment, perhaps $30,000 or so, and would go well beyond the planned budget available for the project. There is no way to shorten the front to back dimension of the structure without starting from scratch. Due to its construction and foundation details, physical relocation of the building is also not a viable option. It would be a major and costly undertaking, very likely at a cost of $20,000 or more. And these numbers are based on a very carefully prepared estimate that we have obtained. So moving along, the third of our most central points is that there's one neighbor on the north side of our backyard who has visibility of the structure. And it turns out that if we're required to move the structure forward by 2 feet, it would have a significant negative impact on the view from his backyard. So we got in touch with the property manager who discussed it with the owner of the property. We have a letter from the property manager and states that the current location is preferable because moving the structure forward would negatively impact the southward looking view from the backyard of 177 Cronin Drive. Now I can move more quickly through several other points in our statement of justification. Obviously, we'd like to avoid any unnecessary risk or stress to the structure, which would result from having to move it. The structure, as I said, has been constructed very carefully with a view to providing a completely weatherproof storage of Berber's materials, some of which are perishable fabrics and so forth. And of course, a structure that would be weatherproof for comfortable working conditions as well. So we also have letters of support from all neighbors that are bordering on the backyard. As mentioned earlier, we have obtained agreements from the 3 involved utilities that an easement encroachment is acceptable. And we have noted from looking on Google Maps and such that there are similar structures in the neighborhood. These last 2 points are simply to make the point that the placement of the structure as it is not unreasonable or unusual. In fact, there is conflicting or at least confusing guidance in a publication that we picked up a couple years ago in the permitting office, which seems to indicate that an accessory building 60 feet or more from the street property line could have a side or rear yard less than 5 feet. That was discussed in some detail at the Planning Commission, so I won't spend any time on that. We don't claim that's any change to what's actually in the code, but that was confusing or conflicting guidance in that particular publication. Codes of at least 2 neighboring cities would definitely allow for a 3-foot rear setback in our situation. On this slide, I show how we believe that our points in the statement of justification can be mapped onto the types of findings that are necessary to approve a justification. Okay, so in terms of the status of our projects, first of all, we acknowledge, as stated in our letter, we acknowledge and regret deeply that our contractor did not follow the proper permitting process and that we were not knowledgeable enough or experienced enough to do that when it should have been started. Nonetheless, and by the way, in the letter of justification, we do spell out some of the reasons as to the circumstances under which we moved ahead without the proper permitting. But nevertheless, we believe that our variance justifications are valid. We've already paid dearly for this mistake, not only financially in terms of fines and fees, but also in terms of a very lengthy delay of our landscaping and other plans in the backyard, and in terms of a great deal of emotional stress that this has caused on Barbara. And our contractor was also fined and sanctioned. Just 1.5 more slides here. So as mentioned, we had a letter from a structural engineer indicating that he did not see any issues that would require remediation. If the variance is approved, we've been discussing any remaining issues with David Herzl so that we can move forward quickly to finish out the inspection and permitting process. In summary, as I mentioned, our statement contains 11 points of support for this request, and we show how we believe they do map successfully to the types of findings that are needed. And we particularly request, can I just finish this slide?
Go ahead and finish both your last 2 slides. Go ahead.
Thanks. Actually, this is the last one.
Okay.
We particularly request consideration of the reasons that I've spelled out why the structure needed to be in its current location. I can elaborate on that if needed in discussion. The prohibitive cost of rebuilding or moving, even if it's only a matter of 6 inches or 2 feet. The structural design precludes any simple modification to address the setback issue. The impact on the north neighbor who has expressed a preference to stay with the current location. And finally, ending on a personal note, during this entire time of addressing these permitting issues has been a very intense emotional roller coaster for Barbara because of the emotional significance that this building has for her. And if the variance can be granted, it would allow us to avoid a great deal of additional emotional stress that would come as a result of having to either demolish or relocate or reconstruct this building. Thank you.
Thank you for that thorough presentation. And I might have some questions for you, Councilmember O'Neill and then Councilmember Mahan.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Mr. Martin, you said that you talked to contractors and they said that they weren't sure whether a permit was required for this kind of building. Did you ever talk to the building department at the city for them to advise you whether you needed a permit or not?
No, I'm sorry to say we did not, and we obviously regret that. We would do it differently.
Right. A lot of us would do that.
Oh, you can come on up, Barbara, if you have comments.
So also, so it says in some of the description that there's no water or heat, but so I take it, is there electrical power in this building?
There is.
So was that ever inspected? So when you were thinking this through, did you think that if you were taking an electrical line out to an accessory building detached from your house, that would not have to be inspected by the city just to ensure your own safety and that of your neighbors?
We foolishly assumed that could have been managed after the fact. We didn't carefully, we were not very knowledgeable. We certainly have never built a home, and we were not very knowledgeable about how the process would need to proceed.
A line had been laid from our panel under the house. I was hoping to do this at some point, and that was when we had the panel redone, and that was inspected and permitted and okayed. And so we had the line out there, and I thought hooking it up was not that much more into, that. I just didn't think it would. I come from a family where we do it ourselves. We lived in a place where when it broke, you fixed it. There was nobody else to fix it. And that's just where my background is. So.
So it mentioned in your presentation, so you've already, you said that Silicon Valley Power, AT&T, PG&E, everybody's already
Yeah,
agreed to.
they've signed off, and we have letters from all, well, we have letters from AT&T and PG&E, and we have an email statement from Silicon Valley Power that these things are good to go.
And I want to also mention that we do not have any poles in our yard. They are in our adjacent neighbors' yards. So the only thing that is in that easement are the wires above. There's no problem to get to either of those poles.
So there's mentioned in the report that there's some issues with the foundation. So you said you've hired you've had a engineer, a structural engineer or something. So do you have some kind of an opinion as to whether the foundation that was constructed was sound?
Well, we have the letter from him that we included, and his opinion that, yes, the foundation was perfectly adequate for this type of structure. It's my understanding the city also would be the intention of this city to do their own inspection after we get past this stage of the process and move into the building inspection.
Right, but you haven't started any process to actually get permits?
Well, yes and no. I mean, initially, when we filed this variance, it's my understanding that we filed the application for permits and the variant and for this variance at the same time. In fact, I can back that up if you want to see those documents.
Well, and Andrew, did they have or Sharon, do you know, either one of you, whether they've applied for, whether the application for variance concluded them applying for building permits?
Oh, David Hersel, our building designer consultant.
Hi, the way that the process normally works is that the building permit application for a building gets reviewed by all departments, and the first of those departments is the planning department, who says, yes, you can, or no, you can't build that building. And so in this state of the process right here where we are, is we're seeking planning department approval. And once that approval should be granted, then all of these building permit applications will happen subsequent to that, all inspections and everything. And there will be a set of plans drawn up and submitted for plan check and approval. And when permit is issued, the inspectors will come out and see that that is indeed how it was constructed.
City attorney has something to say.
Yeah, no, you can't issue a building permit that doesn't comply with the planning code and the zoning code, and it can't comply with the zoning code unless they get a variance first. So you can't actually get a building permit approved that isn't in compliance with zoning. So they'd have to get a zoning.
But I mean, at least I wanted to know they started the process.
The proper
though.
legal proceeding here would have been, before you even built the building, you should have gotten the variance, and then you could build the building. So that's the normal way most people get variances. They're basing their request for variance on the fact that they built the building illegally, and technically speaking, there's really no legal authority to rely on having built a building illegally as a hardship under a zoning code. But I mean, I don't see authority here from what they've said. You can't create your own hardship.
Andrew, did you?
I think I would just be reiterating, but it's correct that our process is that before we accept a building permit application, we will look at it to see if it's something that the zoning code even allows. And so we will note that, this does require a variance and direct them towards that process first before we don't want to encourage applicants to, put together a whole building permit application submittal first for something that can't go forward. That being said, there could have been opportunities to have an inspection or something like that, but really we wanted to focus on the variance first on our side as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan?
Yes, thank you. I have some questions for the homeowners. What is the square footage of the building itself, not including the deck?
335 square feet.
And what is the square footage of your lot? Approximately.
That might be here. Sorry, I don't have that on the top of my head or in my printed documents. Oh. 6,967 square feet.
Almost 7,000 square feet. And I know you provided all of this information. You provided a great deal of information. I wanted to point out and emphasize a couple of things. First is, you said that the electrical line to the location was inspected when it was laid. It just wasn't hooked up at that time. Is that right?
Well, it was, the building was not their building,
Right.
it was laid. So there was a line under the house to the area, and it had to go out to into the ground. That's as far as it got. And
But that was inspected?
Yes.
That was done with permits and
Yes.
inspected. And you have all of your neighbors in support of this building, including the three most impacted. Those are the three of the adjoining lot lines to your property.
Actually, the 5 ones, the 5.
Right,
We
but
have
I'm just
one
concerned
behind
with
us
those whose
and 2
fences abut
corners.
your
Yes.
property.
All of them, all 5 around that area have.
And it's a non-habitable unit. There's no electricity, there's no bathroom, there's no plumbing.
There is electricity for
I mean, I'm
lighting,
sorry,
but
of course there's electricity. We just went over that. There's no water, there's no plumbing, there's no bathroom.
Nope.
Nobody could live there.
No
You
heat,
can't,
no gas.
no gas, no heat, no kitchen.
It's not designed for living. It's designed as a studio for working.
So it's
like
almost
in a
one of
garage.
those, it's very popular these days, the he sheds and she sheds, those
Yes.
places where you go to get away from
Yes, which is
each other
what
and
it
have your
is.
own private space. It's more like those things. Almost, you can buy those things portable and plop them in your
Well,
backyard.
I had a plastic do-it-yourself one in the yard, and because of the high temperature in the summer and the low, cold temperature in the winter, it ruined some of my material, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted this built to protect my art supplies that I had. It was a meeting of several things that set this ball in motion. My parents expired, and we went and got their house sold, and I got a small inheritance from them, and also some supplies from my mother, who was an artist, a fabric artist like myself. And there was a bit of a time crunch in finding a place to put this stuff before the winter came. And I had the money in hand, the need to have it done soon, and this contractor that we had that was on the same creative level as myself to put together this studio that I had envisioned. And they all came on at the same time, and I knew if I didn't grab the ring at this time, it would never happen. And I thought, foolishly and mistakenly,
All right, that's, okay.
that permission
we don't
was,
even need to go there. And I want to emphasize too that you do have approval. You don't have the encroachment permits themselves, but you have approval for the encroachment from Silicon Valley Power, from PG&E, and from AT&T.
Yes.
Yes.
It won't impact any of their
No, it
lines or
will not.
operations. So would it be acceptable to you that if a variance were granted, that it be done on the condition that should this building ever become or be converted to habitable space, i.e. a kitchen and or bath put in, plumbing put in, that at that time it would have to be moved to comply with zoning code?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, then when the time is right, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Colstead?
Thanks, Mayor. I have one question for the planning director, community development director. The applicant mentioned that the electric line to the accessory unit was permitted and inspected. If the building wasn't permitted and inspected, how could the electric line have been permitted and inspected?
Well, our records indicate that the project was built, the house was built in 1958. There was a permit issued at that time. And in 1960, there was a permit issued for the rear patio. And we do not have any record of a building permit issued since 1960. And our records from 1960 don't speak to whether or not there was a line. So I couldn't really give any more information on that.
And the applicant mentioned that they had a new electric service put in sometime in the past, upgraded panel, and was that ever permitted?
The information I have was that there were no permits issued since 1960, so.
It was through a kitchen remodel with Sears, and it was through
So the service might have been permitted, but the electric line?
Well, again, we don't have any record of having conducted a permit inspection for the service since 1960.
Thank you.
Oh.
The appellant testified that Sears put the line in, but she didn't testify that she had evidence that an electrical permit was issued for the work that Sears did.
I assume Sears.
I'm just saying that we don't have a record of an electrical permit for the work done by Sears at that time.
I'm certain that this was properly permitted, including the electrical service panel. If needed, we can find these records. And at that time, this line that Barbara spoke about was part of the work that was done.
It was a circuit that was dedicated for the future, and the line was, I'm not enough of an electrician to know what that is, but I told them exactly where I wanted it to come out when we were going to do this in the future.
One more comment, if I may. In the Planning Commission report, I recall that there was a mention of these more recent permits, and I could probably pull that out if that would be helpful. It might take me 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Okay, let me see if I have that.
Probably look at permits online. Let's continue. Councilmember Colstead, do you have any more questions? I'm going to go to Councilmember Watanabe while you're looking that up.
You mentioned that that there are similar structures in the neighborhood, that there are similar structures like yours that are, do you know if they comply with the variance code?
I do not know.
Have you gone out and checked, I mean, as part of this process?
Not really. I feel it's a little invasive. I have not, other than looking at from Google Earth, that the structure adjacent to mine on the other side of the fence appears to be as close as mine.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
I have a question. If the variance were approved with conditions this evening, would the applicants then go and apply for all the building permits?
Absolutely. We intend to fully
get that done.
We intend to, in fact, we would like to have had this process done a little faster.
Yeah, I should say this variance application we didn't just bring this in out of the blue. We had very lengthy discussions with planning department staff members that we agreed on a proper sequence of events, which in the current sequence of events, we're at this stage of dealing with this variance request.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No other questions? You said there was information from the Planning Commission.
Well, I'm not sure if I have it here, but I'm still looking. But if it's essential to see evidence of this prior permitting that I mentioned, I'd be happy to come back to the next meeting. If that would be the right way to go.
It has to have been permitted because we had an issue with the city when they inspected it. They said that one of the lines from the pole was running over our patio, and our patio had to be chopped off, or we had to have a 20-foot pole put on the roof to keep the wire over 6 feet from the patio roof. Mm-hmm. And we solved that problem to the satisfaction of the city. So there has to have been a permitting process there, an inspection process there that was approved. I mean, that was an issue that it happened.
There absolutely was. If I had my laptop, I could find this. I'm pretty sure I could find this online.
And by the way, that line that we were told was out of line was the way we got the house. That line was there when we purchased the house in the beginning. So it came as news to us that it had to be changed. And it was.
I'm just looking online, your permits, because it's easy on our smart permits to look online, the city. Re-roof, remodel with adding a breaker and 2 outlets, Sears Home Improvements, so you do have some permits on, and they were all finalized. Yeah, so I see that you do have some permits, at least electrical, for a kitchen remodel and a
Right,
re-roof and that.
those
So I can
ones.
see that service upgrade, replace furnace and that. So, Councilmember Mahan, do you have a motion? I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
think- oh.
Councilmember first. Councilmember Davis, your light's on.
I just had a comment because this is a beautiful building. And I think when people move to Santa Clara, our contractors have to be a little bit more diligent because, you know, it's gorgeous. And I like your she said, I really like it. I think it's awesome. But unfortunately, you kind of got caught up in this web of you didn't do the proper yada, yada, yada. But then we've got other stuff that says you did it right. So, you know, you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. And I would really hate to see this building destroyed, but the law is the law, but it's like breaking my heart right now because you're caught. And I just think that these contractors have to do more diligence.
I agree.
Because
and
I
he
just
was
think
sanctioned.
it's a shame. And you're not the only person that's come up here to us and said, help me. So I think that either we have to do better outreach on our contractors or we have to figure something out here because, you know, it's very hard for you to stand here and say, you're gonna knock down my shed because it's not in compliance and you need this variance and you're willing to make the time and make it legal, but we're kind of doing a reverse process.
I will be the poster
So-
child for advice for anyone else that I know building.
God love
Believe
you.
me, it's a lesson. It's a lesson well learned, and I'm very ashamed that we did it this way.
I don't think you should be ashamed. I just think that you got a wrong contractor. And I think that we have to be better in communications out there with our residents because we're going to be building accessory units. And the size of your property seems to, and this thing is only 335. I mean, it's just, to me, a little morsel. And then I look at the pool next door and they're enjoying this huge pool and you've got this tiny little thing that isn't, you know, but it's yours and it's your property. So I just wanted to make that comment. I mean, I know that we have to do better up here, but, and the contractors have to do better. But I feel for you and I hope that this goes in the right direction. I see that you're compassionate about this and you get it. You absolutely get it.
Absolutely do.
So I do feel for you. But I just hope that going forward that this is a lesson for the contractors of the world. So I hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan?
Do we need to close the public hearing, or? Yeah, it is set for hearing.
Yes, wait, is there any member of the public? I don't have any cards. Jennifer, no cards? Any member of the public want to speak on this issue? All right, so a motion to close the public hearing? And that passes unanimously.
So let me
That's
say
just
this.
closing the public hearing. Hold on.
All right, yeah. So I want to say this to the appellants, applicant appellants. So had you started this from the beginning in the proper way and applied for permits to start, chances are you wouldn't have needed a variance. You would have been told you had to have a 5-foot setback. And because of your other configuration, the zoning administrator could have made a minor modification at that level without coming to planning commissioner staff to allow you a 3-foot 6-inch setback. And I don't need to hear your comments.
It's just let her continue. Thank you.
So, for the length of my cell phone, we could require you to take this down, to move it at a cost of $50,000 or whatever. And I want you to know that cost is not a factor in granting a variance. Whether or not you made a mistake is not a factor. The fact that you created a hardship, which you now try to get out of, is not a factor. The additional stress that you our feeling and experiences is not a factor. The reasons for you placing it there is not a factor. None of those are factors to grant a variance. However, I do think that for the length of my telephone, that we should try to find a way to make this work. I'm looking at the aerial photograph, and I see in your particular neighborhood, i.e. the adjoining parcels that back up to your lot, one of your neighbors has a large addition in the back. It looks like a new addition that he put in the rear, which occupies most of his backyard. Your nearest neighbor, if that's north, that's got to be east, has 2 accessory units that look like they're very close to the fence. Your neighbor to the north has a pool, if I'm reading that right, which comes pretty close to the fence. It seems like that corner is pretty impacted already by structures that are already in place. And your structure doesn't adversely impact any of those neighbors. In fact, to move it forward, you say would impact adversely your neighbor to the north, and they might object to moving it forward. So I think that kind of a configuration in your immediate neighborhood probably gives you enough reason to allow a variance to that, to place the structure where it is. That coupled with the fact that it's a non-habitable structure, and that coupled with the fact that you're only 6 inches off of what would be allowed as a minor modification. And to the extent that you have said here tonight that you would find it acceptable to accept a condition on this variance, that if this structure were ever converted to or become a habitable unit, or you were to add water, plumbing, bathroom, kitchen, that it would then have to be moved or somehow brought into conformance with zoning laws. For those reasons, I would say we could make the findings to allow the variance with that condition, and so that would be my motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor. I'll be supporting that motion. I think it's a reasonable motion. And I think that there's a lot of lessons learned here. And unfortunately, a lot of people learn the same lesson. I think it's not a residential unit, and I think Councilman Member Mahan has done a very good job of listing the reasons. So I'll be supporting the motion. Is there any other comments on this? Lights on the motion? And that passes 5-2. You get that, Jennifer? Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have any reports for action. Seeing none. Stadium Authority items. Seeing none. Reports of members and special committees. Any member of the council? Councilmember O'Neill?
I'll briefly mention that last Friday I went to a briefing at the Food Bank of Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. Many of you know that I've been involved in the Emergency Assistance Network, and through my parish, I'm on the board that oversees the Second Harvest Outlet. But one of the comments I wanted to make, talking a lot about some of the issues that we're talking about here with the cost of housing and what that's doing to create food insecurity. I'm trying to obtain the materials from the food bank, but what was of concern to me is they showed kind of like a heat map for food insecurity, particularly for children of the county. And other than the east side of San Jose, one of the darkest areas was the city of Santa Clara. So I do think that many of you have heard me speak about my concerns about service gaps that we have in terms of not having a full service community service agency and some of the other issues we have. So I am, like I said, I have contacted the director there to get some copies and to get some more of the backup information. And I do think that we really need to work a lot more with our nonprofit agencies, with the school district, with Mission College, with all of these groups, because when she specifically said, as you see, with East San Jose and Santa Clara, we have, So I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that we've added, school population at this point is not decreasing in Santa Clara, and the district did add another Title I school this year, so we're not going in the right direction. So, thank you.
Please get us that information to the city manager's office so we can identify those areas and see how we can help. Anyone else? All right, city manager, executive director report. Okay, report of actions taken in closed session, city attorney.
There were 2 items on which I need to report. On the case of Harmon versus City of Santa Clara, the city council approved an offset of $10,000 for the payment of interest amount to the plaintiff against the award of sanctions that were awarded in favor of the city and against the plaintiff, leaving a net yield of sanctions award in favor of the city of $59,756.31. In the matter of County of Santa Clara and City and County of San Francisco against Donald J. Trump in the appeal of the sanctuary cities matters in the Ninth Circuit, the City Council authorized the City of Santa Clara to sign on as amicus in support of those 2 jurisdictions in their defense of the appeal by the United States.
Thank you, city attorney. There's no others. We have an adjournment, and I'd like to adjourn this meeting in the memory of Sanford Diller, the founder of Prometheus Real Estate Group, and of whom many of us on this diocese have known for many decades. Sanford Diller was born on June 4th, 1928 in San Francisco to Jacob and Claire Diller, who emigrated from Austria. He received his BA from UC Berkeley, where he met his beloved wife, Helen Samuels Diller. He went on to UC Hastings and USF to study law and received his JD. After many years of practicing law, Sanford switched careers in 1965 to invest in the future of Silicon Valley and founded Prometheus Real Estate Group. Under his leadership for over 50 years, Prometheus grew into one of the largest and most successful apartment development and investment companies in the San Francisco Bay Area, with apartments and commercial projects throughout the West Coast, many in Santa Clara. Sanford and his wife Helen established the Helen Diller Family Foundation, best known for its contributions to university facilities in the Bay Area and in Israel. The Family Foundation is a major supporter of the University of California, San Francisco, museums, parks, and Jewish programs locally and abroad. It has given more than $650 million to support UCSF student and faculty programs and cancer research, as well as tens of thousands of dollars to the Bay Area organization, including the DeYoung Museum and Contemporary Jewish Museum. As the child of immigrants who fled Europe to escape persecution, Sanford always believed deeply in democratic and Jewish values, educating the next generation, supporting Israel as the Jewish homeland, and giving back in a way that makes the world better than how he found it. Sanford was predeceased by his wife, Helen Diller, and is survived by his daughter, Jackie Saphir, his sons, Brad Diller and Ron Diller, his son-in-law, Dan Saphir, his daughter-in-law, Emanuela Diller, and his beloved grandchildren, Yoni, Joseph, Josh, Lauren, and Ben. So if we could please adjourn in his memory. Second. Motion, second. Lights on the motion. That passes unanimously and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.